What's going on, guys? We are here talking about North American RLCSX and who can make the major, who cannot. It's early in the morning. My hair, well, not that early. It's like 10 o'clock. But my hair's a mess. But hey, it's all good because we're here to talk what's going to happen over this weekend. The games begin in 4 hours, basically. So I will try and post this as soon as this video is up. But let's start at the top, and then we'll work our way down of what teams need to do to make the major. Last time, we talked about the European major, and I said probably the point limit, 150 to 160, and that's exactly where we got it, right to 160. So I was pretty spot on there. I might have been a little bit off. I might have said 170. I'm not really sure. But we'll say I was exactly right. So now we're moving over to NA, where NA is way more top-heavy. And you'll probably need even less points, possibly, to make it in. We'll have to see how it all plays out. First, let's talk about who has already clinched the major spot. Now, top 16 go to the major. G2 won the grid, so they're in anyway. But for the most part, it's just top 16 make grid, and that's all you really need to know. Now, the teams that have clinched are the teams with 300 points right here. So G2 would have been in either way. We'll explain why in a second. Basically, what you can do to figure this out, here's your placements as well with the points. I'll bold these points here so we can show them off a little bit better. I don't know why this is like so wide. Let's fix that up a little bit. There we go. So the way we can do it is basically going down to teams like Rogue, where like how many points do they need to catch up to teams in the 300 range, or even Pittsburgh Knights. So you could start here with Pittsburgh Knights. 70 points is all they need. Then you have to go up to the 100-point mark. So at this point, you're just going to run down the line in reverse order of where they finished. So 100, 100. And this team actually needs 150. So we could probably even do that. So we'll just throw 150 in there because at this point, we're going to continue to do that. So there's 4 150s, so we can give them those points. We'll just run down the line here just to show this as an example. So 200, 200, 250, and Charlotte Phoenix cannot win because they are not in this tournament. They're the only team that is in this bubble range that failed to qualify. They got DQ'd first round. I'm not sure why. And honestly, I hope, which sounds bad, but I hope it was an internet issue or something, because if they literally didn't show up on time, I think that is much worse. But I'm not sure what the answer is there. So if anyone knows, throw it in the comments below. But say Adept wins the whole thing, they would move up some points. Now we'll just sort here real quick to show this off. So if this did happen, 300 points would still get in, just barely. They would squeak in top 16, followed by Bosef Esports would fall out at 270. So no matter what, top 300 points, you are in. You don't have to worry about anything there. And obviously, those teams would also get 10 points at the very least, but all of them would, so whatever. So it doesn't matter too much. So let's go back. We'll resort by what we're at right now. So right now, obviously, playing for seeds near the top is the teams with the 300 points. Basically, I would say the cutoff line is XSET. Like XSET, very likely in at the points they have, 170, because there are so many teams fighting below them that also have like very little points. Now, the one thing that is bad for XSET is there's more teams tied for 16th at 100 points or even close to them, which I would say 90 points for Phoenix, but they're out, so it doesn't matter. But there's an extra team that's in the run-in at 100 points, but the one benefit is the team in 13th is still 50 points behind them, so they would need Bosef to get more points than them plus 50. Then you would need 3 of these 4 teams to also get more points, plus 70 points there. Now, we know XSET, they're in this tournament, so they're getting at least 10. So that means all these teams would have to finish in 12th to 14th, well, actually even higher for the teams below that. They would all have to finish at least 9th. So 3 out of these 4 teams would have to finish 9th, and Bosef would have to finish right below them in the 12th place spot. Very unlikely, I would say, that all these teams make it up that far. So that's why I'm thinking relatively safe. Now, of course, there's outliers, and there's teams like down here where if they make a really good run and make a bracket Adept, teams like down in this area, then there's a chance that there's more teams coming up. But very likely, if that does happen, the other teams are knocked out. So while they're not safe, I would say mathematically they're in a very good spot to make the playoffs. So XSET, the Sonics, Team Frontline, yada, yada, to make the major playoffs or whatever you want to call it. So now we're looking down here. in the bottom, where both have only a 20-point edge, and very likely the teams that are going to make it are going to be moving up into those 30-point round games, you would hope. So in the 12th to 14th to the 9th to 11th. So the problem for Bosef is they only have a 20-point lead over all these teams. If they finish 12th and then a few of these teams finish 9th, they will pass them because of that. Now, I think a 12th place spot for them would very likely get them in, as we said before. 170 is a pretty good spot, so that's actually 180 because of what XSET has. So I could see that being relatively safe. So I think that's where people are trying to hit, right around that mark, right around where XSET is now. So very likely, I would say, if any of these teams with 100 points finishes 12th, they will probably get in. Because, again, like North America is very top-heavy, so you expect most of the top 12 or 14 to be from this list. You don't really expect too many other teams to come out of that. So I think probably if they get to a 12th, they would be fine. Now you have to move down to Adept, where they're going to need a little bit more help. I think 12th probably won't cut it. They'll probably have to come in 9th at the very least to give them good odds to make it to the playoff. And we can go down the list here. E-United, that's where it gets sketchy as well, where a 9th, they have a shot. Like, I could see it happening again right around that mark. The same from Europe. 100 extra points for them would be right on the cusp, and it'd be very, very difficult. So they might need to make actually top 8 at this point to get in, just because there's so many teams that are in the run-in above them. Now, again, there is a chance that these teams drop out early. There's a very good chance of that. And if that does happen, it opens the door some more. So a team like United, maybe a 9th could be good enough. They'll probably know going into that final day for top 16 where, like, what they need to do. Because if a lot of teams drop out in the earlier round, because the one nice thing is when everyone's really close in this area, and because NA is so top-heavy, most of these teams, or not most, half of these teams are going to fall out of the top 16. And there's always probably one extra surprise, like usually happens. So for these teams, like maybe 160 is good enough. Like if you want to be safe, you want a little bit more points, I would say. And if you get to that 150 mark, then they're definitely safe. So we'll see what happens there. But like if I had to call it right now, if E United made 9th, I think they would get into the top 16 for the major. So that's what we're looking at. Ghost Gaming, formerly Omelet, they're also in that same exact boat. If they get it to 9th place finish, I think they would likely get in, but it will not be for sure. So that's where people are looking at. Crimson Wings and Zookeepers at 50 points. They might need a little bit more than just a 9th. 150, again, could barely make it in. Because, again, I could see a lot of these teams that are at the 100-point mark not getting better than 15th. Like, I could see maybe a few of them, like 2 of them, but you need 3 of them to at least get 15th or higher than 15th to be out of the run-in here. That's if, Bosef at least gets 30, yada, yada, yada. So that's really the question mark here. There's 4 teams tied for the last 3 spots. Where do they finish? And that's where that line will be drawn. If they all make top 16, numbers are going to go up because everyone gets 50 points. They'll be at 150. And then some of them will get wins, right? So maybe all of them get wins. Who knows? But at that point, you would expect at least one of them to go 0-3. But only 2 can go 0-3. So you would need both to go 0-3 to keep that line at 150. So we'll see how this all plays out. But it's very important for these 4 teams to see what they do. If one drops out early, that opens the door even more for teams below them, where then you only have 3 for top 16. You would hope one gets 0-3, so they would go to 150, and then these teams have a chance to move up. But if all 4 make it, you need 2 teams to go 0-3 to keep that line at 150. If not, it jumps up 20 more points. So that's where it's going to get interesting there. But these are the teams kind of alive, but at the same time, like if we're talking 150 points, could possibly sneak in, then literally every team's alive. Because if you get to the bracket stage, which I think is very possible for a lot of these teams, if you have an underdog story to just squeak by and barely make it in, then there's a chance that you could actually be in the major at that amount of points, 150. So literally everyone's alive. The one reason for that is because obviously if one of those underdog teams will do that surprise run, that very likely means that a few of these guys are dropping out early, or at least one of these guys is dropping out early. And because we're talking about top 16, well, version 1 right now, number 17. We can only have top 16. So if you take the top 16 here and then add in one surprise team, that drops out 2 of these guys. So they would finish at 150, which means major would be at 150, unless, of course, more teams come out through the underdog process. But again, who knows where that is. So 150, 160 is probably that line that we're looking at. Maybe 170 if all these teams do well. It's probably that line that you want to look out if you're a fan of these teams to see if they'll make it to the major. The teams above that line, all these guys that are not clinched technically, I should probably highlight them instead of their points. They're very likely in, but not mathematically in. So you don't want them to bow out super early. But once they hit that 300-point line, I think right now that would be the magic number. I'm trying to think. Well, 300 will clinch. I'm not sure if it is the actual proper magic number, but it might be. I'm not really sure. I'm not going to do that math right now. It's not that big of a deal. We'll worry about the magic number probably when we get down to like top 16 if we need it there. But generally, you want to be heading towards that 300 number. So as long as these guys probably even get 1 or 2 wins at the bare minimum, they'll be completely golden. And then, of course, like if they make top 16, they are set. It's just going to come down to this area. So keep a lookout for these teams throughout the weekend. We have Group A going today, Group B going tomorrow, Group C, top 16 going Saturday, and finally Sunday is the playoff bracket to see who walks away with the most points, who gets the best possible seed they can for the major, and then, of course, the major double the points. So we've done 2 regionals so far. This is the same as a major, and you can only get top 16 points. So a lot of points on the line. Like these teams right here, plot twist. They have 100 points right now through 2 regionals. If they made the major, they would get plus 100 without even playing. They could just lose 0-3 and they're out. They would have to play probably. I assume if you forfeit your spot, you're probably not getting your points. I'm not really sure how that works. But there it is. So all these teams are alive outside of Charlotte Phoenix. They have been eliminated early in the qualifiers, so they will not be participating in that major spot. And again, like if that line does hit 150, literally any team can do it if they have a magical run and make that playoff bracket. So keep a lookout for that. We haven't seen that too much. Maybe Xset was that one magical run we had. Outside of that, top 8 teams, these are the teams you expect to make playoffs most of the time, and you could probably throw Rogue in there as well. These are the teams you expect to make playoffs most of the time. So we'll see how it all plays out. That'll do it for this video. Thank you guys so much for watching. Enjoy the North American games this weekend. It's going to be a busy weekend, but it's going to be fun. So until then, we'll see you on the desk. Later.